So in today's video, I want to discuss the not all men trend that we see lately when women in particular share their horrible and abusive experiences with men. We all know from social media, life circumstances, and just general societal knowledge and stereotypes that there are problematic men in this world. Lately, on social media in particular, there have been a lot of women coming forward or content creators discussing the particularly harmful, purposeful things some men do in relationships due to jealousy, misogyny, and general disrespect for women. Things such as purposefully destroying or giving away sentimental pets, plants, and items, cheating on or financially abusing their partner, physical harm and domestic violence, often to both the woman and the children within that relationship, and manipulating, gaslighting, and mentally torturing women to get them to either give up a boundary they have, accept a horrible situation, or be unable to seek or obtain help in a bad situation. The list goes on and on, and if you go on social media, you can easily find videos of women talking about these things, trying to help other women to escape these situations, and trying to warn younger women before they get into these situations. The issue I do want to highlight in this video is the small percentage of problematic people, oftentimes other men, who come online to use the phrase, not all men. Oftentimes, these commenters leave that comment by itself or go on a self-pleasuring soliloquy about how they would never, etc., 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 or how they always do, insert noble act that is really just called being a decent human being. These comments detract from important conversations surrounding the behaviors of some men at best, and actually excuse these harmful behaviors at worst, because they create the facade that women are overreacting or just choosing wrong. Never mind that some problematic things men do are so common that it is often depicted as TV tropes or basic marriage problems. Never mind the fact that these commenters often completely neglect to even address the initial post or problematic behavior. And never mind the alarming number of women who've experienced these things that not all men are quick to refute doing. So here is a post I read on Reddit about the not all men response, as well as some responses that go along with the post that will really sum up the point I'm trying to make. So let's just get into it. The original post reads, "It's not all men, but it's a lot." And for all of you men that insist on telling us it's not all men, you're part of the problem. Because while it's not all, it's a lot. It's not a small minority. If it was 1 of 5, women wouldn't be victims. Every woman in your life wouldn't have a story, whether of being groped, followed, catcalled, etc. We've been telling you it's not a small minority of men, but yet you refuse to listen. The leading cause of death for a pregnant woman is murder. From who? Her husband. If it was a small minority of men, this wouldn't be true. Men are 6 times more likely to leave their wife if she's sick with a terminal illness. That's a big difference, and shouldn't be ignored, because it makes men feel villainized. If it was a small majority of men, the patriarchy wouldn't still be in power. From calling women inappropriate names, to jokes about grape, revenge porn, the making, watching, and sharing of deep fake porn, wage discrimination, and so much more. Women are not doing this to ourselves. These problems are still rampant because men still do them. At an alarming rate, we've been trying to tell you, and you're just refusing to believe us. No one thinks they're the problem. That's the problem. We live in a world where everyone says, it's not me. No one wants to look inward and improve themselves, and say, maybe I'm part of the problem. Good men are the minority, not the other way around. Women have been saying this, and this can change, but only if men are willing to acknowledge this. And this is just the main point I'm trying to get across in today's video. It's not all men, but by discrediting the experiences put out there, other men, and even some women, stifle and reduce the pressure on the bad men to change, or even get properly punished for the wrongs they have committed. They get to hide behind the not all men shield, and either gaslight themselves into thinking they are not the problematic ones being talked about, or believing that the little decent acts they do manage to do, because human beings aren't evil villains 100% of the time, can cancel out their deviant behaviors and violent outbursts. And this point is also summed up in the responses to this main post, so I'll include some of those to showcase this. With the first comment saying, "No, it's not all men, but it's almost all women," in regards to women, most women having had a negative experience with a man at some point in their life. And a reply to that saying, "Not all men, but which men?" That's the scary part, because there are plenty of them, and the people saying not all men should understand that, or they are likely the problem. Men who aren't the problem don't pipe up at every opportunity to tell us they aren't the problem. They listen, empathize, and are grateful that this isn't one thing making their life harder. They recognize their privilege. And another comment saying, I agree. Even if it is a small minority of men that cause the problem, then that means that the majority of men that cause the problems are getting away with it and affecting the majority of all women. If you, the male reader, or whomever needs to know, can believe that all carts are bad and one bad apple can spoil the bunch, then I believe it's within you to believe that there's a glaring problem with the male population. It's very possible you know a man that has accosted, sexually harassed, or even assaulted a woman. Have you ostracized that man, or have you allowed their behavior by failing to act? Another comment saying, I think I saw a pretty good thread a while back that one of the best responses to not all men is simply enough men. Would it be good if women could trust men by default? Yeah, but unfortunately that's not the world we live in. And as far as inconveniences go, having to take a bit of time earning someone's trust is fairly minor compared to constant worrying about your own safety. So in short, 100% agree. If a man says not all men, I reckon they're being self-centered and putting their own emotional needs ahead of being an empathic human being. And I replied to this saying, I explained it to my cousin a bit crudely, but they got the point across. He's a decent dude, but lacks the vocabulary to have that argument with his shitty friends, co-workers, etc. If every meal you ate had a 1 in 1,000 chance of being poisoned, and a 1 in 100 chance of tasting like it was garnished with poop, and a 1 in 10 chance of being stale or expired, how carefree would you be about the meals you ate? You don't even have to have eaten any of the three, but you know enough people that have to see the effects. And chances are you've had a poop meal at your table, even if you weren't the one to try it. And a long and thought-provoking comment saying, I agree. There should never be a disclaimer of not all men, as it gives the very men who need to hear it an out by immediately believing they belong to the not all. Any man who is upset by women airing very real grievances really should examine their behavior, because if you're not the problem, you'd be aware that it's real and know that the shoe doesn't fit if it truly doesn't. They absolutely cannot get past any complaint being with, why do men, or I wish men wouldn't, and focus on it. They try their best to downplay and disprove the issues in groups that enable each other. Apparently the best and brightest in the atheist, rational, skeptic, anti-feminist, incel-enabling sphere is Sargon of Akkad, and he attempted to disprove the 1 in 5 statistic with an outdated survey he misinterpreted, and his whole shtick is how toxic, wrong, and anti-male anything remotely feminist is. The only reason he would have to at worst lie and at best cherry-pick information that he erroneously believes about 1 in 5 is if he's offended by it either because he cannot get past not perceiving it as a slight against an entire gender or has serious unresolved issues, which isn't surprising given his behavior when he thoroughly got wrecked in a debate with Christy Winters. Bucking against very real and observable women's issues is more important to these guys than acknowledging it and doing what they can to help. It's not like we're expected to stop the existence of bad people. Even the smallest things can ripple out to big change. I successfully rehabilitated 2 former incels who got out of that group. I taught them how to improve themselves and got them to understand women's perspectives when it comes to dating and how to get into it confidently yet respectfully. One of them is much happier and has hobbies and interests. The other actually had a girlfriend last time I checked in. It may only be 2, but the fact I reached any of them and they may pass that on to their peers, I see it as a huge victory and worth the 200 or so negative responses with meaningless alt-right insult buzzwords. It doesn't even have to be that active. Even simple things like keeping problematic behaviors from your peers in check can make a huge difference. Don't laugh at your friends' dumb grade jokes. Don't tactically endorse your grown male friends hitting on teenage girls. If enough men who read this kind of stuff post it in men's spaces instead of scrunching their faces up and automatically reacting in offended, knee-jerk anger, it might just make enough of a difference in the subtle, casual misogyny to prevent the horrific actions that it leads to and start reducing those statistics for real. And this is really a main point that I want to add to by saying not just other men but also some women need to take this approach more often. Oftentimes, confrontation is hard for people and not all opportunities are right or even safe to do so, such as in certain work settings or when you don't really know the person making the joke and how mentally strong or stable they are. However, by taking more safe and right moment chances to speak up, or even to negatively react, you will teach these men that their behavior and ways of thinking are problematic and should be changed. So let me know your thoughts and opinions about the not all men statement in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with the main posts and responses? Do you have anything to add or that may be missing when considering the situation? Let's have a respectful discussion below and really talk about it. I also want to end with an interesting comment from a transitioned individual, which I felt kind of had undertones of the not all men line of thinking, but also had interesting and insightful points on how bad behavior among men progresses without the contribution of the quote-unquote good men. Let me know what you think of this one as well. Part of the issue is that the good men tend to get ostracized and not included, and it doesn't happen when they are wrong. This was one of the things that blew me away in my transition. I transitioned in my 30s, after fighting it far longer than was reasonable, healthy, or sane. I never really managed to click with men socially. I got along with them well enough professionally and in terms of acquaintances, but there was always this boys club I could never be a part of. I had some male friends, but it would typically be only a few, and they tended to be people who could flip between the boys club and people like me. I would hear stories from my women friends and be horrified, but it wasn't something that would happen where I could see it, and I hadn't been privy to the locker room talk since overhearing it in high school. Occasionally, I would stumble onto the tail end of something where I had my suspicions, but overall, it was just a social space I wasn't allowed into. Boys club only, and they seemed to know I wasn't part of it. After my transition, I started getting ingrained in women's social circles, and as men stopped treating me as an outsider man and started treating me as a woman, I was stunned. Like, I knew the bar for men was set low, but in reality it was effing subterranean, and so many of them still managed to tunnel under it. I'm the type of person who obsessively tries to do things right and follow all the rules, and I had spent decades putting on this face of what I thought a man was supposed to be. But it turned out that the model I tried to follow was a thing that in the real world doesn't seem to exist. So I agree that men not challenging men is a huge problem. But given the way the boys club works, a lot of them might actually not see it happening, especially given the large number of men with few or no close friends. In many cases, those social bonds that should be holding the a-holes, of which there is depressingly a high amount, to account just don't exist, and I don't know how to fix that. And like I said, I have mixed feelings about this last comment, because on one hand, it does bring up some good points about male toxic behavior being reinforced in spaces where it may not easily be able to be called out or even found out, but at the same time, the comment holds a lot of the not all men. It can't be helped because I'm not part of those doing or saying the bad things sort of vibes. Like, it's almost amazing that in 30 years of being a man, before you transitioned, you were able to not be in any situation where something inappropriate concerning a woman happened, be it seeing an event or even hearing an inappropriate joke here or there that you could speak out on. Like, how lucky can you be to always walk in late enough and loud enough that the bad behavior was wrapping up and or shut off so suddenly that you were not able to catch any of it, as well as the end sentence of not being sure how to fix it, without realizing that maybe instead of taking on misogyny as a one-man fixing crew, you need to realize that pushing for more women's rights while giving women more safe spaces to speak out on these issues without the "I'm the good guy who never saw it" distraction can also be a way to contribute to the solution. Anyway, please like, share, and subscribe, and also let me know what you think in the comments below. Until next time.